Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I wanted to talk to you guys about my 4 essential pliers, well 3 maybe 4 essential pliers for wire wrapping, stuff that I try to not leave the house without if I'm going to an event or to teach a class or anything like that. So to kind of show you guys, first and foremost, you're going to want wire snips. Can't work with the wire if you can't get it off the spool. These are just very basic, kind of generic wire cutters. You can see the way that the tip is on them. They have what I call a scissor hinge, where it's just one on the side of the other, if that makes sense. Like, this blade is attached to this handle and this blade is attached to this handle, and like that. I don't mind the little spring that it has joining. I actually find that those are a little bit more stable than the little ones that kind of come together, or the little spring across the bottom or something. Like, I've never had one with the springs actually break on me. At least not the spring part has broken. And here I wanted to show you guys, I just got a new pair. Like, if these are like basic, and these are very nice. They're by Beetle-On, but you can get them from like electrical shops and like all sorts of stuff too. But I had a 40% off coupon at Michael's, so Beetle-On pliers. Conveniently easy to get into the package, and it says it has comfortable handles, rivet joint construction, and single leaf spring, which you can see is this wire. That it's really nice to have pliers that for the most part open back up on their own. It's a little less essential. These are brand new, so they're kind of sticking a bit, but I do get in the habit of holding my pliers like that. That way I can open them back up, because usually that little part breaks. But you can see sometimes it kind of springs back on its own. But what I like about these, and some people call them flush cutters, is they actually do a perfectly flat side on one side of the wire. So let me see if I can't pull out a piece of scrap wire here. And you can see this one had been cut on with this guy, who is not a flush cutter. It pinches on both sides. And that's why this one's a little less than ideal, because then we come through with the flush cutter and just snip. You can actually see, if the light hits it maybe, where it cut. It left a little mark. Like, I mean, it didn't, it's purely superficial, but, and it wipes off. But that was pretty neat. So now you can see this end is perfectly flat. Well, I could get it a little bit more perfect by sanding it, but you don't really need to. And then this end here is pinched, if you can see that. If you can't see it, just take my word for it. And so that's what's really nice about the flush cutters, is you can be a little discerning and get in there, really fine point tip. I've gotten some in the past that had an even finer point, but this one does pretty good. So these are excellent. So just whenever you're shopping, if you have a choice between these and these, I'd recommend this style. In the rivet hinge, well, it's still a scissor hinge where it's one blade in one handle. It's riveted, so you have a lot less of a chance. Usually what happens to me on pliers like this, especially if it's like round nose pliers, is I'll get in there and it'll be a heavier gauge wire, and I'm turning and the tips will start to go off of line with each other and then snap. So speaking of round nose pliers, I love these ones. I can't remember where I got these, but they're very good. You can see they used to have a little paddle spring. It broke off, but that's why I got into the habit of holding on to them with my pinky on the underside to give me some opening back up power. But yeah, and I've actually marked, I don't know if you guys can see, a little notch there on the blade very small, because that's my favorite spot to make loops, and now by having that mark there, I'm able to make all of my little wrapped loops the same size and match each other really well. But I also got something that I've been wanting for a while, and these are ultra fine tipped round nose pliers. Ow. Sorry. I busted my thumbnail off, you guys, and it hurts so bad because I'm used to having like a nice, like this is the shortest I usually wear my nails. It hurts so bad whenever stuff keeps hitting it. Okay. So these ones have that same little paddle hinge that'll probably break off in a couple of years, but that's fine. But they have really fine points, like just to compare. Do you see the difference there? Oh, that's gonna be so nice. I'm gonna make some spirals and see what kind of difference that makes. I'm gonna move the camera down so you guys might be able to see what I'm doing a little better. Okay. What wire am I gonna use? Oh, I'm not gonna use that. And that's another thing, is you can see with these ones, they actually have what I call a box hinge. And that's where one is inside the other. And this forces the nose of the pliers to stay on track with each other. And that's so much nicer. Okay, I'm just going to use some 18 gauge parawire. We'll snip it with my new snips. Snip, snoops. Set that aside. I'm gonna cut it in half. So now y'all usually see the way that for those of you guys who have watched other tutorials, I'm just gonna grab it. This is my old pliers, as close to the tip of the pliers and the tip of the wire as I can, and I'm just going to make a little loop, just like that. So that's the loop that I made with my old pliers. I'm gonna make one now with my new pliers. Hey, pliers. I think I'm actually going to go through and I might make a Terraflex handle for this one as well, which I do have a tutorial up somewhere. Now, they are a little bit more delicate. I don't think I would work with anything thicker than 18 gauge. These will probably be a lot nicer for like 20 gauge or something. But look at the small, tight loop we were able to get with that, you guys. So just to compare them, that opens up a whole world of potential for just very subtle variances. Because with my other round nose pliers, doesn't matter how hard I try, I would not have been able to make that much smaller loop. I'm thinking like butterfly antenna, all kinds of really pretty, swirly fairy stuff. But yeah, it's like you can actually see these distort a little though whenever you're twisting around. I'm going to do it to the other end and maybe y'all will be able to see. But it's grabbing. You see how that distorts it? No, because my camera's a phone. Well, just trust me, it's distorting. Oops. It's distorting a bit. They're kind of, instead of being perfectly lined up, they kind of go offset. But the box hinge does keep that from happening, and I can probably guarantee you that if I were using a 20 gauge wire instead of an 18 gauge, like pretty much any thinner gauge, it wouldn't have been as much of a problem. But I'm going to keep making little swirlies because I like my swirlies. Oh, y'all, I'm so excited. These are sharp, too. Now, someone had commented that you could actually take pliers like this and grind the tip down, but there is a benefit to having the thicker nose, and that's these don't bend on me unless I'm using like a 10 gauge, like really thick, really hard wire. So that's two kinds. The third kind is bent nose pliers. They're like chain nose, but the nose is bent. That's why they're called bent nose. I know, it's like magical, mystical names that are so straightforward. And let me find, let me get my camera straight. I have two of those as well. Here we are. And again, I use these for chainmail, all sorts of stuff. These ones, you can see the difference in tip. Kind of going on there. These ones are a lot more rounded. These ones are much boxier, but They're both box hinges. I'm so excited. And they both have the TerraFlex thermoplastic handles put on them. That I just make my own handles, and that way it fits my hand. Because you can see on something like these, there's nothing for my pinky to do, which if I'm crafting all day, that kind of makes my hands cramp up. Whereas if I just extend it a bit, it's like ergonomic or something. But again, just the difference in tips really makes I'm able to get in much tighter areas with these little ones, but I'm able to like really like strong arm it around with these thicker ones. And I really like it for whenever I'm like working on a piece and I need to like get in between two other things. These are perfect for just doing it. And then fourth, and probably least vital but most nice to have, I just found my tape measure, but like my favorite luxury pliers. Dadnammit, camera. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm just okay, let's do this. The most like first time you can splurge, get one of these. They are called Nylon Jaw Pliers. They have replaceable jaws, and they come in like round and curved and all sorts of neat shapes nowadays, but these are my favorite, just the kind of generic flat nose Nylon Jaw Pliers. And what's really cool about them is you can have wire that is all kinds of messed up, and you can try to, especially with the 18 gauge, you can try to straighten it out with your fingers and nothing. But you take your Nylon Jaw Pliers, oh my god, you guys, like for serious, it's not perfect and it's quite a bit more work hardened, but it is way better than what it was. And especially whenever you're a beginner and you're learning and you're kind of going through wire and you don't want to like just wreck it, that's totally a thing that you can do, is just straighten it with your Nylon Jaw Pliers. Another thing that you can do is, let's say you're making little spiral loops, but you don't want to leave any jaw marks, like any plier marks on your materials. You can actually make a beginner spiral and then grab it and bend it around and grab it and bend it, and use these to as a replacement for your fingers, because you could hold it with your fingers, but it can kind of pinch in really bad. And again, if you're doing this all day, your fingers are going to start getting sore. But yeah, and it just takes it. And then let's say you do it with your fingers and your spiral is all kinds of kind of wonky. It's not as flat as you want it to be. Nylon Jaw Pliers. So you can't see it, but in my head it has like a Superman cape on, like coming to save the day. And you just smush it with your pliers and it makes it flat and it work hardens it. So if you're wanting to do like a bunch of loops on like some earrings that you don't want them to bend up over a few years worth of wear and tear, Nylon Jaw Pliers, here to save the day. Like, there's, again, you can't see, but in my head my pliers are standing there very heroically, like da da da. Okay, sorry. I need to get out more, obviously. But yeah, so those are my 4 pliers that if you are new to getting into wire wrapping, highly recommend these pliers. That's wire snips, flush cutters, wire cutters, whatever you want to call them, round nose pliers, bent nose pliers, and Nylon Jaw Pliers. Now, one other plier type that completes basically my collection are chain nose. These are some really fine tip chain nose, but I work in a lot of micro mail and little rings and stuff. So you can see they're just like the bent nose, except for they're straight. And then they look like the round nose when they're closed, but when they're open, you can see it has a flat jaw in there. You can get them where they have a much like, can I see your green handled pliers ready? This is another pair by the same company. I can't remember the name of the company and the logo wore off. But and you can see this little springy part. It's really nice, except for once it breaks and once the little rubber parts, the handle comes off, you now have to do it manually with your pinky to get it to stay open. But so you can see, again, some difference in nose types. Still technically the same plier, but they're very different. And these work well on slightly larger chainmail. But honestly, we don't work with anything over like 14 gauge aluminum on these size of pliers. Anything above that, or if you're going to be using stainless steel, you're going to need like some Lindstrom, like hardcore big, like tool pliers. These are jewelry pliers. For bigger chainmail, for heavier duty chainmail, you're going to need actual tool pliers with like that you can get some leverage and strength and force behind. And if you think your hands are sore from using these on aluminum, just try out stainless steel. It's a whole nother beast. And then flat nose pliers, which I just had one. Now these, again, very basic, very baseline flat nose pliers. And just like their name, just like all the other pliers, they're pliers with a flat nose. So, and these ones, what makes these, in my mind, a lower quality is they have very wide tips here. Somewhere in this house, I have some with very thin tips. Hey, Randy, over there, like where your mouse is there a purple handled pair of flat nose pliers? No. Are you sure? Okay. No, I gave up though. But so yeah, it's, oh, that's the second time rings have spilled today. You can stop digging. Oh, it's not too bad of a mess. Oh, that's our life now though. But on the tips of these, if they were thinner, these would be perfect pliers. But what they're great for is coming in and doing just a 90-degree bend, just having a lot of control over your wire. You can also use them a little bit in place of the Nylon Jaw Pliers, that if you're working on making a spiral, you can come in and grab it with your flat nose. And it gives you a wider point of distribution of the grip, so it gives you a little bit more control over the wire. Because something like these really thin-tipped pliers, the wire's just sliding right through. Like, it doesn't do a very good job of gripping. And then the reason why I like the ones with the thinner tips is you're able to get into tighter spaces to make those bends and things a little, like, more precise and close in where you want them, whereas these can kind of, like, they're large and clunky and get in the way quite a bit. So that's that on pliers, with the exception of like some different specialized pliers, which I do have a couple of here, which I guess while we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and show you. Can I see your crimp pliers, Randy? Sorry. Okay. These are crimp pliers. Randy actually uses them for chainmail because he's wild and free. So different things for different folks. But you can see one of them is nice and round, and one of them is kind of pinched. And what it does is that pinched one, you'll take a round crimp bead, and put it through the pinched one, and it'll make it into like this kind of kidney bean shape. And then you'll take that and turn it sideways and put it in the round one, and it'll smoosh and make it all round. I hope that made sense. But it's a very specific tool for a very specific thing, but sometimes the right tool makes the job so much easier, because I've seen folks who, like some people, like jewelry that I've seen, like they'll just go through with like flat nose pliers and just crimp the crimp bead down, which technically works, but it leaves like jagged edges and it's not like rounded. And I don't know, $8 investment in a pair of these if you're paying full price at Michael's, and you'll have perfectly looking crimp beads every time. Now this is split ring pliers, and they are grody because we never use them, because I decided I hate split rings. But it's a way of, you can use split rings. They look like little miniature key rings, and you can use them to join links together if you don't want to worry about a ring coming apart. They're also a way of doing like scale mail if you don't want the scales to come apart, and that's what I had used these for. But it just has this point that comes in and opens the ring just enough that you can then like hook the thing on, and then you have to set it down and pick up another pair of pliers and like kind of like cinch it around. It's a bit of a headache, but if you're breaking with split rings, this makes it a lot less of a headache than if you didn't have it. And then this little contraption here is for making wrapped or just loops, like eyes for eye pins. And I'll show you how that works real quick with this little bit of scrap wire that I have sitting here. And so what you would do is it has this hole here, and you just put the wire in through the hole. I'm going to angle the camera down so you can get a little bit better of a perspective. Or try to. There we go. Okay. So you'd enter the wire through the hole in like that. And then whenever you clip it down, I didn't do that right, did I? Okay, no. Okay, we're entering in. It's been so long since I've used this, you guys. I'm inserting the wire through, and that hole is there for if your wire exceeds the length. But you can see it makes a little loop like that. So I'm going to snip that off. I have so many pliers, it's plier overload. So what we're going to do is you have it here. We're just entering through right there. And then without doing anything else, you just snip and you close the pliers, and then you can bend a little bit that way. That way it's centered up, because you always want your loops to look like a balloon, not the letter P. I have always found that I have to go through and kind of close that loop down a little bit more to get it to be perfect. And I've also found that this works better for an end of a loop, as opposed to like if I did a loop and then put a link like a bead and then tried to do the other end, there's going to be a little bit of wiggle room. But it's decent enough for doing one end on thicker wire. It's Randy uses this more than I do because he's not as skilled of a wire wrapper and he prefers it. But I prefer to just go through with flat nose, round nose, and wire snips and kind of do that like bend 90 degrees, you know, snip, bend, loop, snip, bend, loop kind of thing, if that makes sense. But and full price, these are like $30, so it's a lot of money to spend on something that you're better off just building up your skill set anyhow, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think I'm going to do a more detailed video with better camera angles on the pros and cons of one of these loop making contraptions. I don't know, it's been a while since I've looked at it on the market, but I had heard rumor of they were going to make one that had replaceable peg sizes, so you could do like a variation of different loops, like sizes, like internal diameter sizes, which would be really nice. Like that would be an improvement on this, but it works better on like much thicker wire. Like 18 gauge is the thinnest I would go on working on this. So got to rambling a little bit more. I showed you way more pliers than I initially intended to, but I want to give you guys an idea of what's available on the market and what it does. And keep in mind that everybody's different. The way that I wire wrap and the tools that I enjoy the most might be completely different from what you end up enjoying. So I'm just trying to give you guys my perspective, and I'd love to hear y'all's perspective. What are your favorite pliers? Which ones, are you devastated if you leave the house without, on the way to a craft show or something? So it's, please leave a comment down below. If you guys enjoy my free tutorials and would like to participate in my giveaways and support the creation of more tutorials, and possibly, if you pledge enough, get kits and materials and gifts mailed to you every month, check us out on Patreon. There'll be a link down in the video description below where if you pledge just $1, it puts your name in the hat for all of our giveaways. That it gives you like VIP access to all of our different giveaways across all of our social media, in inclusion to our patron specific giveaways, which, let me grab this and show you. This little guy. At the time of recording, it's May, and this sculpture is May's first Fairy House giveaway prize. So we'll be drawing for the winner on May 15th. But if you're watching this video after that, please check us out on Patreon anyways, because I do a giveaway like this twice a month, and it's always something unique, and it's always something kind of fairy inspired or fantastical in some sense. Like one time I did like a dragon eye journal cover. It was kind of cool. But we don't really plan ahead too much here, so we're always in for a surprise. I guess all of us are. But yeah, so check us out on Patreon. If you pledge $10 or more, you get kits and materials. The more you pledge, the bigger your kit of materials or more extravagant your gift will be. So that's pretty cool. And if you have any ideas, questions, and comments, I don't know if I already said that, but please comment down below. I love talking with y'all. And I'll see y'all around. Happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.